Okay, so this is the genealogy club, and we have about a split audience between online and here. So as we get further in, people online, remember that it's easiest if you know how to electronically raise your hand, I'll see it. If not, use the chat if you want to make a comment. All right, so with that in mind, what we're going to talk about today is some really neat tricks that have occurred in figuring out whether you're related to famous people. But before we do that, in this process, we're going to be looking at a website run by the Ancestry Pro Genealogist Group. And so when I talk about the work they do and how it applies to you, recognize this is the group that does all the homework for who do you think you are. So their qualifications are pretty good. So who are you related to? All right, I will take the first. Then I'm going to force Peggy to make a comment. And then if Jean is on, she has a comment to share. So my favorite relative is Daniel Boone. You too? Yeah, well, we're Kentucky. Kentucky is Kentucky. So Daniel Boone had a sister, and when she got married, and she is my ancestor, when she got married, the family were all Quakers, and she married outside the church. And Squire Boone, Daniel's father, was instructed by the church he had a choice. He could disown her, or he could leave the church. He said, well, that's an easy choice. Bye-bye. So if you look at Daniel Boone's biography, you'll see he was not a Quaker. You will see that his father was a Quaker and pretty well to the end of his life followed Quaker principles. But anyway, we're descended from his sister, which is really neat when you have grandsons and you want to convince them that genealogy is interesting. And you can say, you know, you've got Daniel Boone. They recognize that. Andy, did you want to share a thought? So we have another Daniel Boone. Oh, good grief, you had to ask that. Okay. So anybody else who wants to share can, but first I'm going to force Peggy to take the mic.
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. That's because I sent him an email telling him that Carole King, the singer-songwriter, and I are third cousins because my great-grandmother was sister to her great-grandmother. So there you go.
There are important things in life, and turns out entertainers is one category that people really like to think they're find a relationship. So I didn't see, Gina, are you on? Is that a yes or no? Okay, well, Jean, Nat Kemper had sent me, no, it wasn't Jean, George, Yvonne Alexander, are you on? Well, that's 2 no's. Well, I guess that is a no. Well, Yvonne sent me one that she is a 5th cousin to Winston Churchill. Sort of a fun one. Okay, anybody else have a famous person they want to share? Online? You can unmute yourself and just, here's Peggy. Okay. If you unmute yourself, just talk.
Hello, everybody. I found a genealogy simple chart that someone probably in the 50s or 60s gave me in the 80s. And it says we are linked to William, I think it was William of Orange of England, way back when. And my father always said, had he known that my mother was related to William of Orange, he never would have married her. So I followed the link, and just somewhere down around the early 1700s, I think, or maybe late 1600s, there's one missing link, and that's the link that carries me to the royalty. So I can't put my hand on that paper, George, but anyway, someday when you don't have anything to do, maybe you can help me find that one link.
Well, I can't promise that because I've got a one link that I work on all the time in a similar way. But I will say that the websites of information we're going to look at today may either help confirm or at least provide someone else who thinks that that's the case. Okay?
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, so before we go there, I want to just take a moment and hit a topic that's called cousinage. Cousinage is basically understanding the terminology that's used in describing relationships. Okay, so we're going to start with my fourth great grandfather, Charles Gatliff. Okay, I'm going to. I need to, well, we'll just hope that won't happen again. Okay, so Charles Gatliff was my fourth great grandfather, and he's fun, and by the way, because he's another original Kentucky founder. So his two children, or many of his children, but two of them are Elizabeth, who's my ancestor, and her sister, Sarah Louise. So because they were sisters, my relationship to Sarah Louise is she is my third great grand aunt. So we take the sister or brother relationship and say that's where the link is. So with Daniel Boone, he is a great uncle. Okay. If we then go, and I don't know if anybody can read this or not, but if we then look at actually what the connection is, we have all of the children of Sarah Gatliff who married a man named Ferris. And you can see what happens is as we go down the line, we're getting cousinage. So if I were to talk to Farrell Potter, or if I've talked to Farrell, we would have been fifth cousins. That's at the bottom on the right-hand side. Because he's one level removed from his mother, okay, Audrey Ferris, okay, she is my fourth cousin once removed. Then you can see as you go up the ladder, twice removed, third time, et cetera. So we'll see some of these terms and the things we're going to look at in a minute. Don't feel like we're going to have a test on it. Peggy. Audrey is the fourth cousin to my mother. Okay. And I'm once removed from Audrey. From my mother, I mean, from my mother. So she and my mother are fourth cousins, and I'm once removed. Her father, Alexander, you follow that up, and my grandmother were third cousins. My relationship to Alexander is a third cousin twice removed, once from my mother, once from me. So that's what the terminology is supposed to mean. No tests. So the first place we start is FamilySearch. FamilySearch has a little program built in that will tell you about your ancestors. So you start in FamilySearch, they have what they call the family tree, where they have merged together all the various people in people's databases and their relationships. So big qualifier. Nobody's gone through that tree and said it absolutely must be accurate. So it is what it is, but it exists. So they can look it up. If you wanted to look up a person, you would look up their personal identification number. So my wife's number is this, GV3PHNS, which doesn't sound terribly valuable to anybody, but you'll see later on, there's a place we can use that identification number to our benefit, okay? So when you get into FamilySearch and you're in your own, you've signed in, over on the right-hand side is something called activities. And down in the bottom activities is famous relatives. So I'm going to switch to a different screen to share. Okay, so we're going to go to FamilySearch. Okay, and now I'm going to go to, so this is, I've signed in. George McKinney, I've already signed in. Okay. Activities, famous relatives. So it calculates your famous relatives. Lots and lots of people. Okay. And for me, it's kind of fun being a techie type. I got Thomas Edison. So if I click on Thomas Edison, their system says he's my 9th cousin 4 times removed. And here is the genealogy. Now, I'm not sure I believe this genealogy, but it's fun to look at. Okay. What I do believe, see, where's the one? Like Richard Nixon? Diana. Yeah, 10th cousin once removed. That's not the one I wanted. So, oh, Emily Dickinson. Okay, 6th cousin twice removed. So in my family, reading happens to be a discipline. So knowing you're related to an author is always interesting. Down in entertainers, to find the one that's, yeah. Yeah, but it comes from this massive family tree that's in FamilySearch. And they have done a lot of the connecting, like Peggy was talking about, where they've connected some dots that maybe or maybe not be real. Okay, but most of them are going from this country. My family's old Virginia, 1600s. So from this country back to that other country, which in my case was mostly Scotland, England. So before the connection, okay? So we might share a 10th great-grandfather, an 8th great-grandfather, okay? Which isn't that ridiculous, okay? If I go to my ancestor who fought in the Revolutionary War, okay, and say, who else was descended from him, okay, Joseph McKinney, they're 6 cousins to me, okay? And that's hard, I mean, I got that one locked down genealogically. The original McKinney who came to this country, I should say his son. I know the son for sure. I'm almost certain I know the father. Okay. I have him, he died in 1732. I have a copy of his will. Okay. He is like my 8th great-grandfather. So it's just time that drives you back. You follow? Yep. Well, the answer is if they are in the family search database, yes. Maybe not. You'd be surprised at the number of links that occur that you're not looking for. Okay, because these aren't necessarily links that show up in many of the normal easy genealogical searches. Okay, and by the way, again, they aren't always proven links. Okay, but they're there. Okay, so let me play for a minute. So anybody want to reach out and have me sign off and sign back on as you? I would need your family search username and password. And if not, I'll go to the next thing. Yeah? Okay. I need your family search, name and password. You got it? Well, if you're ready, I'll just take yours. I like your password. Did I get that right? Good. Oops. I may have put in too many letters there. Just check one more time. You didn't like something there, Jan. Oh, the S is a capital, sorry. You got it, thank you. Okay, so let's try famous relatives. All right, well, you got some of the same ones. You want to be related to Truman? Sure, okay, let's see how you're related to Truman. Seventh cousin, twice removed, that's pretty. Now, remember what I was talking about. Seventh cousin is well within what our normal genealogy would tell us. So let's look at how that's derived. We're going back to the 1700s. And I don't know where in this it might relate to anything you actually have, Jan, but you know, this is what they say it was. Okay. And his will be pretty accurate. Okay, because the famous people side of it's almost always quite accurate. The worry is, like Peggy was saying, what if there's one of these iffy connections as you go back, particularly to the old country? Let me try one more for you. Shall we try entertainers? Buffalo Bill, there's a good one. You want to see how you're related to Shirley Temple?
George, I have a question. Cheryl online.
Yeah.
This pops up with the username. So the person whose account you're using is what's filling in these possible relative famous people, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So what they're doing is they're taking your tree that you've put into Family Search and working from that. Now, my wife didn't have a tree on Family Search. So all I did was I put her name in, I created a tree with her name and her parents and her grandparents. And they took off from that. That worked just fine. Okay, so once you make the connection, and I think that's what we were talking about here, once you make the connection, it'll keep linking. Okay. Well, I'm pretty good with that. I'm much better than that with Elvis. Elvis is like a fifth cousin for me. Of course, if you're from Kentucky, Tennessee, why not, right? As a matter of fact, I'm pretty well related to Dolly. Yeah, because East Tennessee is East Tennessee, and you don't move very far away. Okay. Leslie, you want to? I'll come get it. Yeah, of course. Okay. All right. Is that an N or an H at the beginning? N. Okay. Oh, I have to get to the. To a certain extent, yeah. As a matter of fact, one of the things you'll find is you'll get some interconnections automatically with them. Okay. So let's try this one. So far, so good. So far, so good. Okay. You had no capitals in there, did you? Okay, we'll try it one more time. Is that in it? That's an NAC? It doesn't matter with the email, it just matters with the password. I'm not getting it, I'm sorry. VAR 231 NAC, no capitals. Okay, I apologize. Yeah, we'll keep working at it. Yes. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. If you have a family tree anywhere on the web or on a computer, you can always download it in what is called a GEDCOM, GEDCOM, and then that can be uploaded to any of the other websites. Okay. And it's a very easy process to do. The only difficulty is if you're adding a lot of information to your tree, it doesn't update automatically. You have to do it again. Okay, I'm going to go ahead to the next stage and then we'll come back to this. Oh, here I got one. Let's see if I can get that one. Okay, so. We're in, Peggy. Okay, let's see if we can find famous relatives. All right. So who did you say you wanted me to find?
I think it's William of Orange.
William of Orange. Well, I'm not seeing that in my first pass through, although they may have. No. We've got Diana. We're already Diana. 12th cousin.
I'm pretty shirt was William of Orange, because
Okay.
Dad hated that color, being from
Well-
Ireland. So
The short answer is we'll show you in a minute a weird way to actually check it, but I'm not going to do it right now. And then
okay.
Lucia Ball, that looks like you, right? Eighth cousin. That's pretty good. Elvis is an eighth. Shirley Temple. See, we're all related to the same ones. Okay. All right. I'm going to go back to the. Was that all
Thank you,
showing?
George.
Was that all showing up, by the way?
No,
No.
Okay, because I forgot to. Okay.
that's okay. I can do it later. Thank you, George.
Okay. So we're going to go back to the presentation. Okay. So, well, then there's another website. It's called RelativeFinder. What a unique name, right? And what RelativeFinder does is exactly the same thing, but in much greater detail. So it looks at a much broader group of people. And because it is related, this is the place I told you, these people are the people who do the Who Do You Think You Are program. Okay. And they're tied to the FamilySearch website. So I'm going to stop this and we're going to go over to back over here. Go to RelativeFinder. So when you get to relativefinder.org, okay, and by the way, there will be a posting on the website of these links, okay, so you don't have to write them down. You sign in with your FamilySearch sign in. Okay. Okay, and you can see lots of different categories. European royalty. Peggy, you should try that one.
Okay.
Okay. So here is Daniel Boone, 7th grade uncle. Remember we talked about he would be an uncle to me. It's just way up in the tree. Andrew Johnson, 3rd cousin, 4 times removed. That means 3rd cousin means
Belonging to 772939675 is full and receive your message. Please hang up.
I haven't muted people, probably should have. This is the one my sister loves. Okay, Johnny Cash. Okay, her husband has lived Johnny Cash. His whole world is Johnny Cash. Okay, and so the idea that we're actually related, what more? Unlike Peggy, unlike William of Orange,
Yeah.
this was a marriage solidifying. So you can see they have lots of different links in here. Gus Grissom. There's Elvis again. George Rogers Clark, which again makes sense because he's part of that same cohort of people who founded the Kentucky, Ohio, Illinois area, etc. So this is sort of a fun area to go. Okay, now there's one more thing I want to show you, and then we can turn it over to any questions or any experiments. Let's see, I want to stop sharing. And I want to go back to, I think that's the right one. See? No. Okay. I want the other one. So if you want to find a relationship with a living person, you won't find it because the database doesn't include deceased people, only includes deceased people. Or if you want to find a relationship to someone who's on the massive family tree, okay, but okay, you didn't see them here. So that's how I got, some reason they didn't put Dolly Parton in their program, but I found Dolly. Okay. What you do is you find their ancestors. So the reason I couldn't find Dolly Parton in their tree was she's living. So she's not in their database. So I went on to Wikipedia on the web. And of course, they had Dolly Parton's parents who are not living. So I searched them. And that's how I found out I was related to Dolly. And this is where that PID comes in. You go to Family Search, you find their big family tree, and you look up the person you want to find. And you copy their PID, and then you can put it in. So that's the last thing you can do if you want to play around with this. All right, I will take further questions or people who want to look more things up. This is a fun activity. Do it with the family. Have them enjoy who their relationships are. Okay. Any comments from the audience?
Question.
Okay, we have a comment in here,
Okay.
and then we'll get online. Clyde?
So if you're on Roots Tech and you've registered for that,
Yeah.
You can do this thing called Relatives at Roots Tech, and it will show you, these are all living people because they're on Roots Tech. It will show you a list in descending order of all the folks who are registered, and you can contact them.
Yeah.
That are, and I have hundreds, so it's interesting to look at.
I ought to probably divert for Roots Tech for just a moment. Roots Tech is a program of the Family Search Group where they have online as well as in person programs for 2 days, which happen to be the 2nd and 3rd coming up of March. And you can go on to Family Search, and if you find the right place to click, it's free. And then you can go find any programs you might be interested in. And it's a good place if what you're interested in, all of the search routines things are interesting if there's something that's new to you particularly. You know, you finally trace the family back to Sweden, and you basically say, how do you do research in Sweden, right? Yeah. If you haven't done it, it's pretty mythological, right? Okay. You had a comment, Peggy?
Well, it just seems that this really works mostly with people who have relatives who've been in the United States for a long time,
No.
rather than people who came from Europe,
Ah.
but were fairly, only 100
Okay.
years ago and were poor.
Yeah, now I'll talk to that one. Okay, so my wife is half French Canadian with a weird appendage. In 1700, one of her ancestors was of English descent, living in Deerfield, Massachusetts, and was kidnapped by the French and Indians and ended up growing up in Quebec. So she has this linkage back to the Mayflower, even though that half of her world is completely in French Canada. The other half of her world is Poland, with people who immigrated in 1905 to 1910. And you know what? She can't find any relatives to them. Okay, that's because nobody has put those relatives online. So it's not her fault. It's not your fault, Peggy. Now, it's also true, no matter what you do, that if your family was dirt poor, okay, you probably have a lot less records than otherwise. If your family was enslaved, you probably have some pretty lousy records. And tracking back to 1850 means you've done a super job. And we'll be talking about that. Okay, there was a comment coming from Zoom. Anybody want to make a comment on Zoom?
I do. This is Cheryl Scott. I had a question of, to get to the PID number, it was number 3, you enter it in the relatives, that website, right? After you
Yep.
signed in? Okay.
Yeah, and the good news if you're dealing with a real person is you can mean a person of some historic note. You can probably get good information on them. You can get their name, their date of birth, their date of death, and all sorts of stuff. So if you search for that in the family search tree, matter of fact, let me just pull up the tree to make sure we can all talk about where you do that. Okay, so okay, so search family tree. Okay, everybody can see that? Okay, so if I search on the family tree, okay, I can find the person and then I can get their PID. Okay, and it's just like any other search, first name, last name, birth or death year, or whatever. Okay. And I would bet, but I'm not positive, Peggy, that William of Orange will be in here someplace. Okay.
Would I, George, excuse me, would
Yeah.
I put in William of Orange?
I have no idea. You would
Okay, I'll try it.
You'd probably be well advised to go to Wikipedia and see if you can figure out something about how he would have been referred to.
Okay, yeah, because his last name wouldn't be Orange, would it?
I have no idea, but I doubt it. There was another comment. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, George.
So the question here was, do the famous people's trees in here occur because people just research them for fun? And the answer is in a lot of cases, yes. I mean, one of the most famous independent research projects was when Barack Obama was made president. Okay, they went crazy trying to figure out his American ancestry. And they got back to the point that they identified his Irish immigrant ancestor through his mother. And then they didn't know what to do. And finally, some brilliant genealogist noted that the family farm was right across the county line from another cemetery. Went across the line, found the tomb, the tombstone, which, as does happen from time to time with the Irish, listed his name, what the town he was from in Ireland was, and all the rest of the information you needed to track him. So they dutifully went over to Ireland, and those Irish records were all burned during 1921. Well, it turned out they'd kept a copy, and they were able to find a copy of the local parish records. How about that? So that's true. Plus, it's also true that they just happen. I mean, the Daniel Boone thing, I mean, I did my research, and it's pretty easy if you've gotten the Quaker records are very generous. Tell you a lot. I don't know. Okay, any other questions before we? Okay, next meeting will be sort of an intriguing one, I hope. Ann Neal, Ann, wave your hand at people, and I will be splitting the discussion on enslaved ancestry. Now, that may not sound like a very gentle topic, which it's not, but if you're from the South, if you have any ancestry that's from anywhere in Kentucky, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Missouri, and South, you family probably came in connection with slaves if they didn't own them. For all I know, there may be some of us who have some slave ancestry ourselves. Anne has, you want to give us the 1 minute if I give you the microphone? I give you the microphone. The Zoom audience can't.
All right, hello, this is on. Well, I've been working on research on slaveholding, and it all started with looking at my pioneer ancestors in Missouri and found out the pioneers were actually their enslaved people who did the work. I mean, I'm sure they did the work as well, but I have a connection also with a woman who used to be in Chicago, who called me about the work I was doing in Missouri because she was looking at her family, and I was looking at Black families in that county once I found out that some of my ancestors had owned. And so she called me because she was directed to me from Missouri. And as a result, we ended up working together on the phone for about couple of years before she finally actually went to Missouri, met some of the people that I'd been meeting when I went in the summers there. And it turned out she called me one day and said, "And your family owned my family," which was a shocker because I already had been looking at that on another person, and we're still friends.
So Anne's side is doing conventional genealogy and having found a woman descended from slaves her family owned. My side is I have a niece who is married to a man, at least 7 of his 8 great-grandparents were from enslaved in Georgia, southern Georgia. And they have asked me to do a little research on his family, which I've been doing, so we can share with you the trials and tribulations. And if you think about it, no matter what we do, the whole concept behind the Black Lives Matter in the most positive sense of it is we have to recognize the world we grew up in as a country, and we have to be able to respond to it. Okay. We'll see you all next month, 1 o'clock, same day of the month, same place. Thank you all.
Thank you, George. That was great. A lot of fun.